Hello, welcome to a short video on how to prepare the Enrique Clayton return and some of the issues that we encounter. Enrique Clayton is a small business person. He's also an employee, so we're going to be dealing with a W-2 as well as a Schedule CEZ. In VITA, we will be preparing returns that have Schedule CEZs attached to them. These are very, very small businesses with a limited number of expenses totaling no more than $5,000. At Emily Griffith, we will only be preparing Schedule CEZs. At the DABC, I do believe they allow Schedule Cs with expenses up to $10,000. So the issues that we were facing with Enrique were his small business. Enrique also was able to itemize. He had deductions which exceeded the standard deduction, so we're looking at a Schedule A and the preparation of that. I have prepared Enrique's return so that I can go through it quickly and some of the issues especially regarding the software and quirks in the software, as well as those tax issues that we encountered. So in Enrique's main information sheet, we start there entering in the data. We simply went through the interview form and got all of Enrique's information entered. And Enrique was single, so we clicked single. He had no dependents. This is the form which I've logged into Emily Griffith, but you can see that now Emily Griffith and the DABC will now have many of these fields from previous returns correctly prepared, and you should not have to do too much in the lower section of the main information sheet. There is one area that you do need to be aware of, and that is the taxpayer's PIN. Emily Griffith is automatically populating to 4321. The taxpayer does have the right to choose their own PIN, e-filing PIN. So that is one field that you would want to pay attention toward the bottom. You'll also need to enter a day. It says do not use at today. You can go ahead and enter in the date that you prepared the return. So that is pretty self-explanatory as to Enrique's main information sheet. So we can move on to the 1040, and we can see that it is populated with the information from the main information sheet. If we scroll down to the wages, salaries, tips, we can go ahead and take a look at that because there is a special situation within Enrique. If we go and click the arrow, it will take us out to link the form. Link the forms. That's going to make it populate. If it is not populating, it is perhaps because somehow it was not linked. So if I go ahead to information, and if we look down, I want you to notice I went ahead and checked the calculations off of lines 3, 4, 5, and 6 because Enrique's information on his W-2 is not equal to what would be an auto-calculated amount. So if I check that off, we can go ahead and enter in all of the information that is on Enrique's W-2. So in this box, I did not have in his Social Security number, which was on his Social Security data, which came off of his W-2. So I'm going to want to go ahead and make sure that I have that correct. When you are in QR, this would be the kind of things that you are looking for. Has something been forgotten, and does it need to be added? You can go ahead and enter that. And then again, the Medicare 292.9, the Medicare wages 20200. You want to go ahead and make sure all the data when you are in quality review is in there. That's the person in prep didn't inadvertently forget that information, and then you will go ahead and cross-reference that it is in there. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this with the 1200, and now we should have a completed W-2. So if I go back now to the 1040, let's look at the next issue. In Miki's case in the data, it did tell us that he did deduct state sales tax instead of a state income tax. I rarely see this, but if that is in fact the case, go ahead and check no. The reason is if you itemize, you get to write off your state income tax, and if you receive a refund, you will be paying taxes on that refund this year because you did not pay taxes on it the previous year. So you're going to want to really look if a client is itemizing as to whether they deducted state sales tax versus income tax. If they deducted income tax, did they receive a refund on that tax? They will therefore have to pay taxes this year. It will be considered an income. So let's go down to line 12, the business income or loss. Enrique was a personal trainer, so therefore we are going to be completing a Schedule CEZ. If there is not a CEZ in your list of forms, you're going to want to click add a CEZ, and go ahead and fill that out. But I've completed the CEZ. I'm going to go ahead and click it down here. While I'm down here, I want to make a note to you guys. The X's are a way for you to remove forms. If you need an additional form, the pluses are a way to copy or add a form. Another feature of this software is if your screen looks odd and you cannot see all of it, if you hit Control plus, it will give you a different looking screen. If you hit Control minus, it may pop your screen back up. That is a hint if you feel like your screen has disappeared. Another thing to remember is the scroll bar doesn't just work up and down. The scroll bar works from right to left. So if you can't see your pluses and minuses, you can use your scroll bar. All right, let's go out to that CEZ and let's take a look. You want to make sure that you click who owned the business. Taxpayer or spouse, we just have Enrique. We want to go ahead and enter that he was a personal trainer. They gave us the fact that Enrique had a business code. He knew his business code. Most of our clients will not know their business code. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that your cursor is in the Schedule CEZ. If it is not in the Schedule CEZ and for some reason it is not selected, this feature will not work. But if you are in CEZ and you hit the function 1, the F1 key, you will go and it will take you out to this screen. If it does not launch out to this screen, look at the bottom of your screen and you probably do not have pop-ups enabled. You will want to make sure that the pop-ups for the site are enabled. Once you are in this screen, you can go ahead and see that you have IRS codes. And go ahead and select it. There are other ways to access this, but I find this to be the easiest way for me. So there you will see Schedule C, CEZ, business codes. Go ahead and click on it. If you want, then you can search through the different types of businesses and select that code which is most beneficial for your client. So if I go ahead and search, because we do know what Enrique's business code is, and I believe that code while I'm searching through my paperwork was 713,900. Let's go ahead and do a search and see what it comes up with. Business codes right here. Oh, this is in Spanish. Codes for principal business. There we go. And if we scroll down, we can go ahead and look. Let's try to see if it pulled up where Enrique's business code is. It is. It is highlighted and it can tell us. Now we're not going to necessarily know what our codes are. We can scroll through and pick the code which most correctly represents our client's small business. Let's go back out to the TaxWise Enrique's form and continue. Line F. Did you make any payments in 2014 which would require you to file forms 1099? What that means is that this person has paid subcontractors money which is required to file a 1099. How would I know what that is and those amounts and how to do it? I could go ahead and in the same search field that we did before, we could search Schedule CEZ and look at some of those requirements. We also could go out to the IRS and look at what are some of the requirements. Well, I'm looking these forms. What are some of the requirements for filing a 1099 miscellaneous and independent contractors? While you are preparing taxes, you will be using your 4012 and you will be searching IRS sites in order to find the answers to some of your questions. Again, you can call us over. We can help guide you, but it is not unusual on the fly to be researching these types of situations. Let's go back to tax-wise. So Enrique did not pay anybody else money that would require him to file a 1099 for that person. We do not file anything for our clients other than their tax returns. We're not going to be doing bookkeeping. We're not going to be filing 1099s. That is not our job. But we can research how to answer the questions in our tax software correctly. So let's go down now to gross receipts. This was causing us some trouble the other day, and I've tried to research why it was staying red. And if anybody has an answer other than what I'm going to provide, please let me know. Enrique had two types of gross receipts. One was a 1099 and one was through tips. We can go ahead and I've got it existing. We can enter the data on the 1099 of his non-employee compensation from Bay Fitness 8850. Let's go ahead and select that it's the taxpayer. We can then also go ahead and enter his information from his tips on a scratch pad, the 3729. We can go ahead and do that. Now you can see I have multiple scratch pads. I can go ahead and remove that scratch pad. I can remove this scratch pad. If you find yourself with too many scratch pads, just make sure you remove the one that you need to remove. Now what had happened to me is when I did that, this line remained red. So I went ahead and I ran a diagnostic, and I did not see anything in the diagnostic which indicated that that was incorrect. Until I find out if this is going to be an issue, if you remain red and the diagnostic does not say that you have a problem, and if anybody in the class has another answer for this, go ahead and untoggle that button. What I am imagining, let me go ahead and do this. What I am imagining is happening is it is highlighted as red for us to run a diagnostic to make sure nothing is incorrect. If we know nothing is incorrect, the diagnostic is saying that it is not an issue to the IRS. We can go ahead and untoggle it that we have checked it. Again, if I have a different situation, I will let you know if I find out something differently. Now, total expenses, I haven't entered it because I want to talk about it. Total expenses, we are going to go ahead and start with the mileage if they have mileage. And for Enrique, he did. How did we calculate what his mileage was? Well, if I link the form, I go to a new scratch pad. Let's take a look. What did Enrique have for mileage? So we can go ahead and write down that we're calculating Enrique's mileage. And we can go ahead and calculate his business. So the first part of his business mileage was that he actually had to drive to his clients' homes. So mileage to clients' homes. And the more information that we type into tax-wise, if there is an audit, then we will know what it was that we were doing. So he had 2,000 miles to his clients' homes. What other mileage counted toward him being able to deduct it from his Schedule C EZ? Well, that was the one from his main job to the gym. That was an allowable expense, $750. If we are audited, we can go ahead and explain what we were thinking at that point. So down below, let's go ahead back into the CEZ and take a look. If you notice, we still have 0 up here, even though we've done the mileage. And the reason is we're going to have to take this calculated figure down here. This is just a summarizing area. We went ahead and took his business mileage. We calculated the commuting as being the 11,000 minus the business. That's how much of his car was used for commuting. Tax-wise applies the standard rate. It is important to carefully answer all of these questions down below. I won't go through them. You can go ahead and do that. We want to encourage our clients to have written mileage logs. The IRS has allowed as a written mileage log if they would print off where they went, when they went, and have Google Maps or such of a documentation that would indicate how many exact miles. So it can be in the form of the actual dates, locations, and then Google or MapQuest mileage, something that will verify their mileage and then be able to check that they in fact went there. So now we still have total expenses are empty. So let's go ahead and see what we have to do. We're going to go ahead and link a scratch pad, and we're going to have business expenses. And then we are going to list those business expenses. Well, we know he had advertising. Go ahead and write out all of advertising of $500. We're going to go ahead and enter in his supplies, and his supplies were $1,000. Then Enrique also had liability insurance. We can go ahead and put his insurance in. Were those supplements deductible? No, the IRS does not care if Enrique looks buff. I can go ahead and use the tab key to put in tolls, tab over, oops, tolls, L, and you can go ahead and put 60, tab. We've got the license, his license to operate his business, tab. We've got that for $50. And then we're going to go ahead and put in Enrique's mileage that the software had calculated. And if we go back and we look, that mileage number was $1,540. Let's go back to that scratch pad. We've got the mileage, $1,540. Now if we go up to the Schedule CEZ, we will see that that is now all correct, and we have Enrique's total profit, which then will carry over to the 1040, page 1, and there it will be entered. Now, if you notice, because Enrique had a small business, he is now required to pay self-employment tax. The self-employment tax is going to automatically populate for us, and we just want to double check. So let's go ahead and scroll down the 1040. Let's take a look. Adjustments to income. You will see deductible part of the self-employment tax. Let's go ahead and look and see where this came from. If I go into the linked form, existing, there it is, self-employment tax for self-employed people. The software automatically calculated based on Enrique's self-employed income what he has to pay. That's the matching of his contribution to Social Security and Medicare and the employer's. That employer's section is deductible. You do not have to pay tax on a tax. So if you're doing a Schedule CEZ, make sure that you've got that self-employment tax on there. The other thing that made Enrique unique is the fact that he had deductions which exceeded his standard deduction, and he could file a Schedule A. What are some of those issues? Well, he had some medical and dental expenses. You're going to go ahead and link out and enter that onto a scratch pad so that we can have a record of exactly what were his medical deductions. Again, the more detail you provide in an audit, the easier it is to defend the client in an audit. I've been through several IRS audits, and the more detail I have 2 years later when I get that notice of a correspondence audit, that is very helpful to have that detail. So now another issue is whether or not he's going to be claiming the state or local taxes. This should populate from your W-2, and in last year he filed the general sales tax. I've been trying to go ahead and enter in that he actually is going to claim income taxes this year. I'm going to untoggle it. Again, this is going to be something I'm going to have to look into because it is not allowing me to enter it in that he's going to claim income taxes. I'm going to have to get back to you. But normally you're not going to find clients who claimed a sales tax last year in VITA and who are claiming income taxes this year. So I will go ahead and get you that answer. But this should populate from the W-2 the taxes that we paid to be deducted when we itemize. Let's go down to real estate tax and discuss this. Real estate tax remainder from Form 8829. If our client was claiming part of his home as a write-off to business, we would go ahead and be entering the real estate remainder um, on uh, this section. But since that the real estate taxes are on the principal residence, go ahead and write it right here. Whatever taxes they paid, right here, it's on the Schedule A as a write-off. Let's continue down. Here, Enrique does not have anything listed, but something for you to be aware of. In Colorado, the ownership tax on your vehicles is tax deductible if you're itemizing. If a client is itemizing, make sure that they have the registration documents, because the ownership taxes and those types of taxes will be tax deductible. When you encounter this, call me over and I will tell you where to look for it. Enrique did not have this issue. Here we go. Interest that you paid home that was not written off as part of a business expense. So in Enrique's case, we can go ahead and put the entire home mortgage interest in field 10. Gifts by charity. We're going to go ahead and link out and go put in the charitable contributions. Enrique gave cash as a charitable contribution. We're going to go ahead and list the church and the amount. One of the things that will probably or maybe not surprise you, some of our clients are some of the most generous people I've ever seen. We have people coming in with $30,000, $40,000 worth of income and giving up 10%, 20% to their church or other charities. I have to tell you that I've done taxes for other individuals for many years, and there is absolutely no correlation to what people give and the amount of income. Our clients are very generous. You will see a lot of charitable contributions. So I really want to stress that we have some very generous clients. So you'll want to enter in the charitable contributions. Sometimes those charitable contributions will be what will allow our clients to itemize versus taking the standard deductions. They sometimes will give $7,000 of their $30,000 to their church or to other types of charitable organizations. So if we get down here into job expenses, there are some limitations that will come up. We typically don't have clients qualifying for these other job expenses. If you do, call me over and I will help you. So now we've got the Schedule A. You're going to go through that step by step. The other issue that Enrique faced was his student loan interest. If we scroll down all the way down into the line 33, the student loan interest deduction, we can go ahead and link it out. And the student loan interest worksheet, we can go ahead and put that in there. Another thing that I want to show you is in the ACA worksheet. Enrique Clayton, he had full. We can go ahead and click full. If he purchases on the at the marketplace, we will need a copy of the 1095 in order to complete the return. If they do not have their 1095s, we will have to send them back home. You should be seeing this in your ACA slideshow that I linked you to complete that little quiz. Another thing to make you aware is I have been receiving some updates from the IRS. I'm going to go ahead into my purse. I'm going to be printing this out, and you will be going through this check sheet in greeting and in interview. They are going to need their photo IDs. They will need their social security cards for them, their spouse and dependents, their I-10s, all of these things. I'm going to go ahead and print this out for you, and if you're in greeting or an interview, make sure they have these documents. This is an IRS announcement. So this is telling us we do need to have all of these forms before we can finish taxes. So these are some of the key issues in the Enrique Clayton tax return. Again, you can go ahead and use the scroll bar left and right to delete forms, up and down to find forms. You can add forms here. And F1 will pull up some of the search mechanisms that TaxWise has to answer questions. You will be using Google and other type sites to look up some answers. So you will be using a lot of different tools in this course. Again, good luck. Please let us know if you need any help, and I will be seeing you next week.